Welcome everybody to the Ishtar channel podcast. Not often that you will see us actually sitting next to each other. Normally we're in two different locations, but I'm up here on the Sunshine Coast visiting.
Well, you're visiting, yes.
So we thought we'd take advantage of coming together and finishing part 2 of the 5 original stories of mankind that we started with you a couple of weeks ago. Now, we went through the first 2 stories. I will ask Ishtar just to give a very quick summary, because of course you can go back to that podcast and listen to part 1. But in this podcast, we're really going to focus on story 3, 4, and 5. And I've just been musing over the last podcast and what it is that the 5 original stories of mankind remind me of. And it's almost taking an even deeper dive and understanding into the hero's journey.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Yeah, that's true.
You know, Joseph Campbell speaks about these steps, these stages that we go through that metamorphosis of the hero's journey.
That's right.
And I was thinking the other day, you know, it's really giving us a far deeper understanding of the consciousness within that journey.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. How amazing.
Yeah, I just, sitting with it the other day thinking, that's really what we're talking about here.
There you go.
But from the perspective of understanding the consciousness that we're being asked to learn as we move through the challenges of those 5 original stories.
And you know what the masters say, because this came through Maitreya a long time ago. And as you said, it's a journey of mankind. It's 5 stories or steps of consciousness that mankind moves through on their journey to ascension and to enlightenment. And it is our journey, and where we can go with it. We come back to polarity and choices. And where you want to choose to put your focus or your viewpoint on each of these steps on the journey. So So, and just to recap, once again, that this material was channeled from Lord Maitreya quite a few years ago. And the first 2 stories we looked at the first story was about what creates separation within us. If we go that way, we don't have to, by the way. This is important to understand that in each of these steps. So the first step is when we're birthed as a soul.
Yep.
So we're birthed as a soul into a physical body, and we can go into separation and really feel that we've been thrown out of the womb of source. We've been, no more nourishment, no more support, no more protection,
no more connection,
and we feel very disconnected in this physical self. And I think a lot of souls out there listening to this will know this story, because often we do on our spiritual journey, we go, I feel so disconnected. I feel like we've been cast out. We're suddenly, source doesn't want us anymore, sort of thing. And I just want to go home. I want to get back into that womb. I want to pull back in. And that's that story of separation to source. But in truth, we're never separated to source, because source is always within us, and we have to find that connection again. And we have to find it from a physical sense, because we're now in a physical body. So we have to look for it in that sense through the physical experience. And because we're no longer in that beautiful void or womb of source. And then, of course, from that place, we go into the next step is to step into empowerment of ourselves, but we often go into disempowerment of ourselves because we're still attached to that separation energy, disconnection. So we don't feel we have any power. So we give our power away. We believe that only God can choose for us what's going to happen, or we give it to somebody else, and we give it to a teacher, a guru, a partner, a family, a father, mother, sister, brother, even our children. At times we give that power away, so we feel very disempowered. And then we create that whole victim consciousness that we don't believe we have any power here, and no matter what happens, we feel very unhappy about that, and that can make us very angry. So we go into that feeling of no power because we feel so separate and disconnected to source. On the other hand, of course, you can create the other story of that experience, is that we have that connection with source. Even though we've been birthed into the physical body, we actually are always connected. And so this will always give us power. So we go into that understanding that we are powerful because we have that connection. So it just depends on where your focus goes. But of course, stories are stories, and we can all create a story around that on these steps.
And I think looking at where humanity is today and our struggles and what we're creating as an experience through the collective, it's in that second story that you've just spoken to that we step outside of ourselves when we start searching. And this is part of that awakening process that you speak about within the 5 original stories, that when we're really in that soup of separation, really looking for that connection, we go looking for it outside of ourselves. And that then leads us to the next step on the journey,
which is the third step,
into this third story.
Yeah. And into that third story, which is the consciousness of, often unworthiness. Because in that third story, we're looking for that love again. We want that nourishment, that love from source, that support, that help, that confirmation of who we are. And so we look for it in others. And we go out there and we're looking for it. We're looking for it in our partners, in our families, in our children, in our friends. And we want them to give us that love. We want them to nurture us in the same way that we felt nurtured by the source energy, when we were sitting in that beautiful voidal source energy, waiting to be birthed as a soul. And so the thing is, what we're asking for and the expectation of that is very difficult to find. And often when we don't find it, we often feel that maybe it's because we're unworthy. We're not good enough. So we often go into this, we got cast out from heaven, if you will, or from the source energy. And religion tells us that we're all sinners and we're always doing something wrong and we're never doing the right thing. And so therefore we're not worthy. So when we can't find that same love that we're really looking for, we can find love maybe, but we're not able to find that same connection that we had when we were with source, then we think, well, we're not going to get that because we're unworthy, we're not good enough. And so then begins the journey of trying to be good enough to receive that.
And the journey of feeling constantly disappointed.
That's it. Well, then we go into the fourth story when we don't find what we're looking for and we get very disappointed. We get very disappointed when our expectations aren't met. And so, what happens is then we can fall very much into that whole energy of loss, and it's that grief, the grief of the loss of source, the grief of feeling unworthy, not good enough, of that separation energy with source, disconnection with source. We have that whole grief, feeling disempowered, that's that, all of these, we're talking about all the stories merging into the fourth story. And, and then we feel that whole disappointment of our expectations not being met. And then we begin to live our lives through lack. And no matter what we have, it's never enough. Once again, it's that lack that we live. We feel the loss and we live in lack. So we begin to see everything through that lens, through that focus of nothing's good enough. We're not good enough. Nothing's good enough. We're never going to have it. It's never going to be right for us. It's never going to happen. We're never going to be abundant. We're never going to be happy. We're never going to be joyful. We'll never find that true love. Well, it's always out there somewhere, but we're not going to get it, because
everyone else does, but I don't.
Yes, all of those things. So we go through that. No matter how much I search, no matter how many, gurus I go to, no matter how much money I make, again, no matter how many lovers I have or wives or husbands I have, it's never enough. It never fills me. It doesn't make me feel the way I want to feel. It's always that lack within us. And it's that deep emptiness within us that we feel is there. And so what happens with that deep emptiness is what often pushes us to really begin our spiritual journey. Because all of this is our physical journey through the mind and the ego. And then that deep emptiness sometimes, for many people, drives them to start walking their spiritual path because they're looking for that hole that's within them to be filled up in some way. And so perhaps they turn to religion, perhaps they turn to spirituality, but they're looking for that. So they feel that there's something else that's not another person, that it's something else. It's not a career, it's something else that they have to find.
So would you say at this pivotal next step between meeting the consciousness within story 4 and merging into story 5, there's this pivotal awakening where we start to look inward and we're moving out of that victim that's often blaming another for what we create in our circumstances and our experiences. And instead, we actually start to look at our life, our reality, and question the role, the part that we've played in it.
Definitely, we start to do that. But sometimes we don't start that straight away in our spiritual journey. You know, that's a deeper consciousness. So the masters say there are 3 levels to the spiritual journey. And, you know, there's that whole thing. The first level is often that walk where you're looking for everything outside of yourself to create the magic inside of yourself, you know, to make that connection happen. Because you're still in that, it's got to be out here somewhere mode, and I'm looking for it. Where is it? Is it in that crystal? Is it in that deck of tarot cards? Is it in that angel deck? Well, give me the answers, yeah? Is it in my astrology chart? Is it in my palms? You know, is it
the psychic reader down the road?
Yeah, the psychic reader down the road is going to tell me, you know, what I need to do. Is it in any of those places? It is in the guru in India that I'm going to go and join. Is it in, you know, this teacher? Are they going to show me the way? And if I don't do it, I'm going to miss something, you know, because I'm going to miss one of these tools, which I believe is called the fear of missing out. And so we keep repeating this pattern of, oh, this will do it. No, this didn't do it. Oh, that'll do it. We'll go and do that. Oh, this will do it, you know. So we tend to do that on our spiritual path. And I think if anyone, you know, can look back and remember, I know I did it too. Yeah. So we're all running around trying to find it, and it's always in something else that's outside of us. And then we begin to see that, yeah, well, maybe it's not outside of us. And maybe it's inside of us, but how do we do that? How do we connect with that? So then we go and we find other ways. We're going to go and do magic mushies now, Joe, because that's going to help us go within. That's, you know, I'm going to do, you know, in my day, it was, oh, let's go and do some LSD. You know, that'll take us in, or peyote or mescaline or something like that. Or, you know, nowadays it's ayahuasca. Gives you a great, you know, experience as you're throwing up everywhere, but it does give you that inward journey where you go and see things, you know, stuff like that. And you have that seeing, you're doing all that because it all has to come through the third eye. It's all this. So it's all coming through the third eye, and I can see beyond the trees, and I can see here, and I can see that. So it's all that visual experience once again.
Which is giving a connection, but through the third eye experience of what connection is.
And through your vision and through outside of yourself.
Yeah. And we're not, you know, I think also it's important to say there's a time and a place for all experiences.
Definitely.
This isn't, you know, bagging any kind of plant-based medicine journey. Everything has a time and a place in an individual's path and experience, and they, you know, they can be. Absolutely.
I've done it.
I've done it. And had some very deep and profound experiences of myself in relationship to that, the consciousness of that medicine that's opening up a part of myself to the more of me within the universe. And I think that if it can be guided with the understanding and the education, and most importantly, a spiritual practice that continues from what has been opened within you, then it can very much can support the journey of you continually going deeper within.
Yeah.
So within that journey of that stepping towards oneself, meeting spirit within yourself, you know, what comes to mind is as you talk through the steps of the 5 stories, it's like it's both a shedding, it's also meeting the many different archetypes of ourselves, the different aspects
Yes,
of
it is.
ourselves,
An awakening to that.
and what those aspects are creating,
Yes.
learning from them. And so I love how you said before that we come to this fifth story of realizing that what I'm really looking for can't be found outside of myself. And that can, you know, as you said, that journey of awakening can take many years. You know, it can happen in a moment, but in most cases it happens through commitment to an inner inquiry.
It does, because even in those awakening moments of bliss, how sustainable are they? And this is, I think this is important, because, you know, I have people who tell me, you know, 20 years ago I had this bliss awakening, but the thing is, it's not sustainable in the long term, because it doesn't help them to really walk their path with that deep spiritual connection, and every day to go deeper and to discover more and more and more. So one of the you know, the third level of your spiritual journey, when you're ready, will really be that deep meditative journey within yourself. And that is the most challenging, because you're not doing that with vision. You're not doing that through your third eye. You have to do it through your consciousness. So you have to actually go within your actual spiritual self. And we all have a spiritual self. Some people call it the light body. And you go into that place within you, and it has many levels and many dimensions of consciousness within it that is all you, yet not you in a way, but it's all you, that's all connected to this physical person, but has many different parts of itself.
And with that, you're speaking to the heart portal.
I am. I'm talking to the heart chakra, which is a very large portal of consciousness. And it's so important for you to go into that place and to start your journey from there. And of course, that's sometimes the most difficult thing to do, because it requires focus, it requires a bit of discipline and practice, and it requires stillness and silence. And so much of our spiritual journey that we do, as I said, is all about action. It's all about whether you're doing something outside of yourself, reading the cards, getting a reading, going to astrology, getting guidance from outside yourself constantly, not trusting yourself enough to receive your own guidance, or getting your guidance and it's coming from a part of yourself that's not actually a part of yourself that you probably should trust for your guidance, because it's got its own agenda, or taking some sort of chemical, because even plant-based things are chemical, and enhancing that in some way. But invariably you will find that will always open the third eye. So you're doing it through a vision of the third eye. So once again, you're going outside yourself again, because you're going through that experience, and it invariably takes you out into nature or the universe, and you're seeing the world around you in a very different way. But it's not taking you deeply within all that you have created of yourself to meet spirit, your spirit, and it knows more about you than you know. And to really make that deep connection and come back to that source energy that was what birthed you in the first place, and really connect with that source energy. And that requires stillness. It requires silence. It's not about a visual journey. It's not about a journey outside yourself. It's a journey deep within yourself to meet parts of you that you may not want to meet, parts of you that you have forgotten about, parts of you that may be causing you limitation and upheaval at the moment, and learning how to meet those parts of you and learn from them and honor them and connect with them in some way. But also connecting with that deep source consciousness that's sitting so quietly inside of you, deep within you, that once you meet that place within you, that sacred space within you, you will no longer need to keep going outside of you to find what you're looking for, because you'll find it there. And going back to that place regularly, so you can be nurtured, nourished, and receive guidance when guidance is appropriate. You see, when guidance is appropriate, because your spirit will tell you then that you don't need guidance 24/7. And so you are the master here, and the spirit will support you in that mastery, to come into that mastery, because that is indeed your purpose here, to be the master spirit here. So that's the eventual sort of journey, and it can't be rushed. It's not done overnight, and it's not done by lots of experiences outside of you. Although, in saying all of that, every experience you have, no matter what you're doing, will teach you more of yourself and connect you more with the truth of who you are. And so learning from each of your experiences is one of your biggest gifts.
So I've just got two questions.
So have you?
that
Oh,
have
okay.
arisen
Yes.
while I'm listening.
Okay.
One is, when we reach that point of awakening in the fifth experience, the fifth story, what I'm hearing is that when we come to that place, we do, we're asked to go in and start to explore the different parts of ourselves, which can often propel us back into some of the previous.
Oh, yes, because we'll meet
steps.
the path that were trapped in some of the previous stories. Definitely, yes. Good point. Yes.
So,
yeah.
Having experienced a lot of that myself, awakening to a different part of my consciousness, but often to really embrace that part, I've had to go back and own my creations.
That's right.
In the other steps,
the other steps
stories
that
I've taken on the path. And that's not always easy either.
No.
But that is also part of the fifth step, or the fifth story.
Well, it is.
The embracing.
It's a very important part of that story, because unless you bring all those parts with you eventually and merge them into your light, they're going to stay there trapped in those stories. And that won't serve you as well, because you won't be able to move forward. They will limit you from moving forward. So it's very important to really bring all parts of you on this journey that you're making in that fifth story, and to really help those parts of you to come into the light with you. And you can't, not to leave them behind.
And then one other thing that I wanted to speak to that was pivotal for me in my understanding for the higher guidance, the connection to my higher self, and where I go for that guidance. One thing that you mentioned before is, we are also a physical being in the mastery of our physical experience here. And so whilst we have our higher consciousness, aspects of our higher self that are here supporting this reality, this experience, there is also the human part of ourself that is here learning mastery in human form. And I just want you to speak to, because this was pivotal for me, and so I feel that maybe those listening, understanding that you said before, we don't need guidance 24/7.
No.
And that's the realization that, there are things that your ego is here to learn.
That's right.
And come into mastery of. There are things that the humanness of you is here to experience and make decisions about, that doesn't necessarily involve the higher consciousness of you.
No.
Can you speak to that for a
Oh,
moment?
yes. Thank you. I love speaking to that. Yes. It is. We're here to come into mastery of this physical realm as a spirit, as a being, and to really own the empowerment we have within this physical realm, which is what we've been given. So the thing is, why I speak of that is because with the guidance, you don't need guidance for what food you need to eat every day. You don't need guidance for how much money you need to earn, things like that. That's all physical stuff. And when you really connect, I mean, I know with the masters, they're not interested in any of that. They're not. I don't know how many times I've heard Saint Germain or one of the masters say to somebody when they've asked a question, "I'm not your bank manager," or "I'm not your real estate agent." Yeah, "I'm not your real estate agent." This is something for you as a master in the physical realm that you can make choices about. And it's about you learning how to make choices that are going to serve you. And what they're more concerned about is the consciousness you're going to hold while you're making those choices. So they will guide you to the consciousness you're going to hold. They won't guide you and say, oh, we'll go and move there to the house 3 doors down and live there so much, because what they will do is they will say what you need to do is to perhaps change your consciousness, change your viewpoint. So they will guide you in that respect, but not so much in the physical manifestation of what you need or don't need for you on this planet, because that's something that your own human mastery needs to learn. But the thing is, that becomes very easy when your consciousness is aligned to your spirit.
Mm.
So the more you align your consciousness to spirit, the less you will make choices that don't serve you. And that's part of the learning of coming into mastery.
Mm.
So your higher self and the masters that I work with, but your higher self, your soul, is very interested in your consciousness and what level of frequency or vibration it's holding. And that will be where they will focus. And they will ask you to change your consciousness to match that, so that you can make choices that will serve you. But they will always give you free will. So they're never going to take away your free will to make those choices. But they will tell you that if you're holding the consciousness of alignment to your spirit and to a higher vibration of light, then those choices will be easy for you, because there'll be no question about what will or will not serve you. But if your consciousness is not aligned to that, then of course you will make choices that align to your shadow energy, or the aspects that are sitting perhaps in one of the other stories, that are not going to make choices that serve you, because they're stuck in some viewpoint or energy of consciousness that is not going to be able to make a choice that will bring you into the mastery of your life. So that makes a difference.
Mm.
Does that help you to understand that? Yeah, hopefully.
And I think it's a big one when people are stepping into that fifth step story of awakening, and then really starting to become aware of where it is that they're receiving from. And why they're receiving, and where do I go for that higher guidance. And there's, as you said, there are things here in the physical that we are here to learn through experience.
That's right. And we have that experience, and we have that will, and we have that energy. And to do that, we don't need our spirit to tell us, nor do we need someone outside of us to tell us, because everyone has their own agenda. And everyone has their own experiences and what they've learned, and they'll often try and project that onto you. But you're unique in your own being, and you have your own way of doing things. So learn to trust yourself, call to spirit to help you to shift your consciousness to make the right choices. But, when we're asking spirit to guide us on very earthly matters, about money or real estate, what car to buy, things like that. I know a lot of us want an answer to that, and we think spirit will tell us, but to be honest, in my experience, spirit isn't interested. It's not part of their focus for you. Their focus is about your vibration, your frequency, and the consciousness you're holding. And if they work with that, they know that then you will make the right choices for you. So often when we receive guidance about those things, most of the time it's either coming from our shadows or it's coming from our mind, because we get an answer that is what we want, So, and sometimes that serves us, and sometimes not so much.
So I hope that there's a deeper understanding for the hero's journey that we all take as souls when we incarnate here on this planet. And when you can take an honest look at yourself and just be honest, that's all that's required, some loving, compassionate honesty, and look at which story you feel you're experiencing right now in life. Just know that there is growth and understanding to come from that. And that if you are looking to come back within yourself, well, yes, be honest with where it is, you know, Ishtar's laid out those stories very clearly for us to become aware of which one are we in and where is the potential for us to move to next.
That's right. And that's the most important thing. Where is the potential for you to move next? That's the biggest question. What's the next potential for me? Because there's always potential, always.
So we're going to leave you with that contemplation. What potential are you going to choose next for yourself?
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, as always.
Blessings, everyone. Blessings.